welcome to Collapse Astrology. Feels like it's been a while. My name is Hummingbird, and I'm riding these intense, scary, and exciting waves along with you. And in today's video, we're going to get into one of the main culprits of this energy, which is Neptune at the threshold between Pisces and Aries. This is a monumental transition. An outer planet changing signs indicates a background shift, a change in the environment or surrounding energies and influences. And the Pisces-Aries threshold is the most potent location in the zodiac. It's the place where the Ouroboros mouth meets its tail. It's the very essence of death and rebirth. And with Neptune leaving Pisces, a bubble is popping, an illusion or mirage is drying up. And with Neptune entering Aries, I would say a whole new reality is emerging. Now, this subject has the potential to get way doomer, and some of y'all definitely won't like some of my takes, but I'm actually going to try to keep this a little lighter, both for the sake of our friend the algorithm, and because I've already covered the doomer basics in my Doomer Astrology series. If you're new here and you would like some evidence-based astrology describing humanity's compounding crises, those videos are a good place to start. Neptune is also the hardest planet to pin down in terms of how it shows up in the real world. And so instead of doing much prediction, I want this video to help you connect to the archetype a little more deeply by understanding some of its history and its associations, just to get a sense of what we're working with right now. We'll also get into the transition between Pisces and Aries and what that means for us spiritually, emotionally, creatively, psychically, and more. Before that, I do want to note something that I am personally feeling very strongly that feels related to this transition. And that is a rage, a really ancient soul level rage. That's what it feels like. It feels very revolutionary, very warrior-like, very powerful. So in other words, very Aries. And I am horrified by the horrors, and I feel very powerless, as I know many of you all do also. But this energy, this thing emerging in my heart and my spirit feels like the revolutionary spirit that the oppressors hate, the thing that never dies no matter how many individual people get killed. And like I said, this feels really ancient, more ancient than this civilization, this iteration of humanity. Neptune's leaving Pisces is peeling back at least one layer of the mana, laying bare some kind of illusion. What's revealed might not be pretty, but it will be a relief to see it for what it is, I think, and to be able to face it down directly. And I feel like this rage is inextricably intertwined with a part of me that has seen this before. My soul recognizes what's happening. And so there might be anger there might be something unresolved here in my own spirit, but I think there is also a resource for navigating collapse and dystopia in this lifetime, and maybe for like responding differently this time, showing up to the spiritual battle as full-on warriors. Anybody else out there relate to that? Anyone feeling the veils pulling back or feeling their warrior self emerging? Very curious to hear in the comments if you do. But okay, so let's rein it in and let's start with some basic history. I have done a lot of research on the three outer planets and what was happening in history at the time of their discovery and how it corresponds to their archetypes. This is a lot of the material that I teach in my course, which maybe I'll get around to offering this summer. And I honestly think that understanding these historical connections is essential to understanding the archetypes themselves and how the planets show up in natal charts. In mythology, Neptune is the Roman name for the originally Greek god Poseidon. So he's the god of the ocean. Here you can see him with his trident. And like the ocean, he's known for being moody and tempestuous. Neptune, the god, is jealous sometimes. He is unpredictable. He sort of struggles with self-control. But he's the ocean. He's too big inherently to control, if you know what I mean. He is also creative, generative, and he feels very deeply. And you don't hear much about this in astrology, but Neptune is also associated with horses and might speak to the special spiritual connection some humans have with horses. Astrologically, Neptune is associated with spirituality and creativity, but also addiction, escapism, delusion, and dissociation. It will be a place in your natal chart and in your life that it's hard to make decisions or see things clearly sometimes in that area. It's a very big energy, and ultimately it is a portal to the muses or to source or divinity. But it's one thing to listen to a gorgeous piano piece, for example, and a very different thing to actually play it. So channeling Neptune, really intentionally working with the energy, takes effort and devotion as well as surrender. And without a good outlet, Neptune can be somewhere that we just get lost in the sauce. Neptune was discovered in 1846. These are just some bullet points of the different historical associations. I don't have time to get into most of them here, but the one I think is most fascinating is that the very first oil well was drilled in Azerbaijan, also in 1846. And Neptune and oil have the same shimmery, prismatic kind of appearance or aesthetic. And oil is so nebulous, which is a very Neptunian quality, just in the fact that we don't actually know how much there is, we don't know where all of it is, how long it will last, how easy it will be to extract, etc., etc. And then, of course, there's the direct connection between humanity's exploitation of fossil fuels and global warming and the rising oceans, and then Neptune being the god of the oceans. So check Doomer Astrology 101 and 201 for a lot more on that. Some other important history to consider. Neptune was discovered at 25 degrees of Aquarius, which means it was discovered a little over one cycle ago. And unfortunately, the last time that Neptune made this transition that it's making now from Pisces to Aries, it was 1861. And I will save most of that history for my video on Uranus and Gemini, which relates to the same time frame. But it does seem important to at least mention here that this transit tracks to the first US Civil War, when we could very easily be on the brink of the second. Now let's talk a little about the Pisces-Aries threshold. Aries is the first sign of the zodiac and Pisces is the last. Aries is about initiation, individuation, personal survival. It's very singular. It is the seed that cracks itself open or the little plant that pushes up through the pavement. It's the very beginning of the cycle of life. And Pisces is the end of the cycle. Pisces is fully collective to the point where individuality is lost. Especially the very, very end of Pisces, where Neptune is now, is very close to death, very close to leaving Earth, close to forgetting the body and the material realm altogether. It's very profound energy, but it obviously has a big shadow of numbness, dissociation, delusion, escape from reality, and more. So the Pisces-Aries threshold is the most potent spot in the zodiac. It's really a portal from one world into another or one life into another. And we get a mini version of that every year at the spring equinox when the sun makes that transition. But this year, that feeling of a fresh spring start might be overshadowed by Neptune, which hasn't quite made its own move yet. That happens exactly on March 29th. With this transition, I do think some kind of new reality is going to come into view. And like I said, we might not really like what we see. As you probably noticed, Neptune and Pisces share a lot of the same themes, the same keywords. Neptune is the god of the ocean, and Pisces is the archetype most associated with the ocean. They both relate to a life force that is much bigger than any individual human. They both speak to haziness, vastness, and depth. And more concretely, they're both connected to the dream world, to imagination, to humanity's spiritual capacity, but also our addictive and escapist tendencies. If we don't treat these energies with reverence, we lose ourselves in them. And with Neptune at the very end of Pisces right now, all of these themes are turned up to 11. Both the shadows and the superpowers are activated. So if you're looking around, looking at how we're all just kind of acting as if everything's normal, how the world, or at least America, looks like we're kind of operating in a dream world right now, And I mean, I'm as guilty as everyone else. I'm still spending a lot of my energy on my own life, my own day to day. But I think especially when you look at celebrity and influencer culture, or when you look at slop, like slop culture, whether it's actual AI slop on YouTube or just super poorly written and acted Netflix shows, and people just watch it, just turn their brain off and watch it. I feel like that is a good example of Neptune at the end of Pisces. The sports gambling apps are another really dark one, and the crypto scene just in general, which unfortunately in the US has just evolved into a big addictive gambling parlor, although I don't think it had to be that way. Super realistic video games, even VR are other Neptune and Pisces places that people go to escape, and obviously just straight up scrolling on social media is another one. So Neptune's influence won't go away when it enters Aries, but something is going to shift. With the double influence of Neptune in Pisces gone, some kind of bubble will pop, some kind of illusion that we've all kind of been head in the sand, distracted from, is going to reveal itself. I've been anticipating this transit for several years, and since the main subject I've been tracking with Neptune and Pisces is climate, my first guess was that there'd be some kind of climate catastrophe in the background of this transition. And I mean, there still could be, since I'm recording this a few days before the first official entrance. Shit can go down anytime. There are, I think, massive wildfires in South Korea as I'm recording this. And also, this transit isn't really over until 2026, as a lot of you probably know. But sadly, the most overt manifestation of this shift seems to be the fake country continuing their crimes against humanity, upping the ante on them, and the American secret police also coming into view. I'm not going to go into detail about these things, but I do think it's pretty obvious that this is one of the ways that it's showing up. This is one of the ways that the bubble is popping. A reality that we've wanted to be in denial of, and that in this moment, even now, millions of people are still in denial of, is going to become less deniable. And if you are in the grief of that, if you're in the heaviness of that, if you're already feeling the hard, heavy reality and feeling thrown by the dissonance of needing to act like the world's not on fire, to go about your daily life, even if you are doing that, kind of doing it even successfully, first of all, I feel you, I see you, we're in this together. And also, this is the Neptune at the very end of Pisces energy. It is a time to grieve. It is a time, I would say, to lie in bed all day whenever you can, if that's what your nervous system is asking for. Deep despair induces a freeze response. That's something that we need to be with and metabolize, I believe, before we can move into aligned action. And that is really the Pisces-Aries threshold in the body. Because Aries is an energy that is absolutely essential moving forward. Aries is a disruptor. It takes the world on its shoulders. It acts courageously and decisively and instantaneously. It is a warrior. And Aries energy makes a lot of people uncomfortable. I mean, it can be brash, and of course it has lots of shadows like impulsiveness, selfishness, unproductive rage, lack of follow-through. But even in its high frequency form, Aries makes people uncomfortable because it is inherently disruptive. A seed cracking itself open has no regard for the equilibrium of the root system that it's disturbing. Aries disrupts equilibrium in a way that calls the entire ecosystem into action for a period of time, for one phase of the cycle, until a new equilibrium begins to establish itself. So all this Neptune and Pisces energy, all this slop eating our brains from all directions, it desperately needs a disruption. We need a wake-up call. We need something to snap us out of the haze and look the fuck around and start acting like the world is on fire. And I can't imagine this transit ultimately being anything but that. Now, the timelines are very unpredictable for a few reasons. First of all, as you know, if you listen to my 2025 forecast, Neptune crosses and recrosses the threshold this year, coming back into Pisces for a few months at the end of the year and re-entering Aries for good in early 2026. Saturn is doing almost the same thing, just with dates a little different than Neptune's. And on top of that, Uranus is also moving between Taurus and Gemini this year and doesn't enter Gemini permanently until late April of 2026. I think there are a lot of overlapping themes between Neptune and Aries and Uranus and Gemini related to the stock market, technology, communication. Although honestly, all those words are words you'd mostly associate with the Uranus transit, I think we're getting a wake-up call about all of those things from Neptune and Aries. But when I say the timelines are messy, mostly this video is about the current transition of Neptune from Pisces to Aries and how to handle that energy. And in terms of like what major changes are happening in this moment, what I'm predicting for this acute near future timeline, what it will look like to meet the call of the Aries warrior, I am not sure at all what will happen when. But what I believe is that you can tap into that inside of yourself right now. Maybe you also have an ancient rage that is rising inside of you. Maybe it's your deep love or your grief or some other emotion that is the portal for you. Maybe there's a feeling of urgency, a tightening of the muscles. Maybe our blessed friend, anxiety, is part of it, but maybe there's something also underneath the panic that is your soul's own recognition of this moment. If you can find something true inside of you, something that feels like a space of clarity within the haze, an eternally burning flame, maybe that is your personal Neptune and Aries. This is something I will go into more in another video because I think it relates to the North Node and Saturn and Pisces as well as Neptune and Aries. But another important theme of all these transits is moving deeper into our spiritual capacities and potentials. And to be honest, this is a specific subject that activates my ancient rage, the denial of non-material realities like astrology, like telepathy, like the presence of ancestors, like NHI, non-human intelligence, done by people with these smug-ass, condescending attitudes. Neil deGrasse Tyson is the obvious mainstream example. And, you know, when I get past the anger with him, I kind of have to just laugh at him because I'm just like, wow, like you have such a big, big platform. People look up to you and you're so small-minded. You're so ignorant and like, okay, that's fine. Like not judging you on your ignorance, but you think you're so above everyone. And in reality, you're completely shut down to so many beautiful truths of the human condition. The deniers of the telepathy tapes are another example of this. The debunking that I have come across of that podcast is just so smug, so condescending, so coming from a place of anyone who believes in this stuff is just making it up to make themselves feel better. And I'm just like, give me a fucking break. Like you are shutting down uncomfortable truths in order to make yourself feel better. And it couldn't be more obvious. And I would feel sorry for these people again, like if it weren't for this gross smugness that has just been part of every piece of pushback that I have personally seen against the telepathy tapes in particular. So I don't know, maybe it's just wishful thinking, but I do hope Neptune and Aries, along with the other transits of the year, ushers us into an era where there's less space for the haters when it comes to spiritual or immaterial realities. I think there is some kind of process moving forward around UAP disclosure, but that whole thing is not simple, much more complex situation than most people realize, and that is also a subject for another video. But maybe more evidence of telepathy, or who knows what else could shift as Neptune enters Aries and the bubbles of illusions pop. You can, of course, look to the Pisces Aries threshold in your natal chart for more information about where this big reveal is happening in your personal life. And if you have personal planets in late Pisces or early Aries, things might still feel pretty foggy for a while, by which I mean a year or two or longer. Sorry about that, but Neptune moves super slow and has a super wide orb. It affects planets like up to 10 degrees away from it sometimes. So while it's transiting a personal planet, you've kind of just got to lay back and take it. If you're having one of these transits, you might be getting big downloads of one sort or another, but it might be way more than you have been able to like bring through and manifest in your reality yet. So just remember that the transit is a once in a lifetime process and that it's measured in years, not months or weeks. All right, I'll finish here. I really hope you enjoyed this video and that it gave you some good, helpful concepts and ideas to work with in your own astrological practice. If you are new, don't forget to like and subscribe, maybe even share the video. That really helps the channel grow, and I'm really hoping that I can get monetized here soon. Also check the description box and you'll find my tip jar, my private reading offerings, my Instagram, and other info. All right, bye for now.